and welcome to Mindful Makers, a show that is all about exploring the many ways and many journeys that we can take to discover and live our true purpose whilst enhancing the lives of those around us. I'm Sahar Milani, your host for the show, and today we are joined by a very special guest. She describes herself as a regular old Cali girl, but in my eyes, she is far from regular. Winner of the Women Who Thrive Awards for 2023, this lady created a brand from a deeply personal experience and centered it around feminine sexual wellness in a region where such topics have historically been, well, delicately approached in public forums. What I love the most is that there is a consistent thread of humble honesty, compassion, and humanity in the way that she shares her passion with the world. The person I'm referring to is none other than Emaan Abbass, founder of Ketish, the first female-owned, experience-based feminine products brand that is completely homegrown in Dubai. Emaan, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh my gosh. Every time I hear an intro, but that was like an intro, I have to remind myself, girl, she's talking about you.
It came from the heart.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show. So I know you've done a lot of interviews that focus very heavily on the brand that you created, Ketish. And I'm really keen for our listeners to have a bit of context around the brand and also around the experiences and learnings it brought you. As a brand purist myself, I know a good brand when I see one, but I also know what it takes to make a brand work and also to build the communication, to run it, to sustain it, whilst maintaining, I guess, your own personal brand and your own identity as well, because the two can sometimes get a little bit mixed. So would you mind telling us a little bit about the journey that you've been on, sharing a bit of your journey with me, and also the catalyst, I guess, that led to creating Ketish?
Yeah. You said that building a brand is not easy, and that's definitely true in all sense of the word. I think my journey to Ketish, and I've said this before, it started before I even knew I was working on a brand. I feel like it's been a lifetime in the works for me. And I've always been that kind of person that has wanted to make something of myself and create something that I can call my own. And I just never knew what that was. I remember being a very confused teenager where everyone knew exactly what they wanted to do and where they wanted to go to university. And I was a little lost and confused. And it took me some time to arrive to a point where I felt like, I know my purpose. And I can honestly say that since creating Ketish, I feel like I have finally found my purpose. I think what brought me to that point is a number of different things. So I grew up in the States, Middle Eastern, Egyptian girl growing up in a little country town in California, very much that story of being other, very different. We were one of the only Middle Eastern families growing up there. And a lot of the challenges that I went through with regards to accepting myself and accepting my culture definitely led to building this brand. I think, growing up, we never really talked about the female body and pleasure and intimacy. And it was very much a taboo in our household. We only needed to know the basics, like here's what a period is, here's what sex is, you cannot have it. And if you do, the worst possible thing will happen to you. So it was a very no topic. And I think it backfired because I became a very curious young woman. Fast forward to my early 20s, where I think there was a very pivotal moment in my life where I was diagnosed with cervical cancer. And that was terrifying. And we can kind of go into that a bit more. But what I drew from that experience and throughout the large part of my 20s, being very turned on to my intimate and my feminine health, and at a young age, I realized that I was not educated. I realized that there was not necessarily a community where young women like me who had that cultural experience of feminine health, sexuality, pleasure, intimacy being such a taboo. We didn't really have a community to turn to. And then also realizing that there weren't a ton of products on the market at that time that were safe and effective, and products that I felt like really spoke to me and that were going to work for me and for my body without harming me more than what my body had already been through. It wasn't until my early 30s, so I guess 9 years after my initial diagnosis, I started working for a fellow female founder. That founder really showed me that it was possible to take a vision, to take a need, to take something that was so meaningful to her and to create a business out of it and to create a community out of it. And it was really watching her create her business and her now empire that influenced me to say, you know what? I think I can do that too. And I know the exact thing that I would want to create. And eventually that became Ketish.
Magical. It must have been incredibly hard for you to experience such a, I guess, life-changing thing at such a young age as well. Do you find that you draw on that in your daily experiences to this day?
Yeah, I was really lucky in a sense that they were able to detect my cancer early on and they were able to treat it without chemotherapy. But I think just hearing that word, cancer,
Carries a lot of weight.
a lot of weight. And I actually don't say this much, but I was diagnosed a week after I lost one of my closest family members. And he wasn't a blood relative, but he was my dad's best friend. So he was basically my uncle. And he passed away of leukemia the week prior to my diagnosis. And so, as you can imagine, it was a lot. I was already grieving the loss of him. And then given this diagnosis, of course, it sent me into a tailspin. I think something I learned about myself in that experience, and something that I think I still very much do carry to this day, is my ability to compartmentalize and to put very challenging things into a box and to only take it out of the box when necessary. And I've learned that that's probably not always the best thing to do, and that it has harmed me in ways because I think that putting it into a box and ignoring it, or not really facing my emotions and what I feel, it comes out in other ways. It manifests in other ways. And I didn't always recognize that in a younger age. And now recalling that experience now in my older age, I can now see how it was very damaging. And I'm very aware of when I do that. And I try to, now when I face difficulties or challenges, I try to approach them differently.
Yeah, it's almost like unlearning the things or habits that you would have taught yourself through conditioning or experiences and interactions, and unweaving those in your spirit in order to live a fully embodied life that is very present and moves and flows with authenticity in the moment, whatever that moment may bring, whether it's darkness, light, pleasure, pain, but you embody it fully and move through it in a genuine way.
Yeah, I didn't always do that.
Yeah.
I did not always do that.
I think that's what our 20s are about, though, really. You know, I look back on my 20s and I think, wow, I still feel 20, like in my spirit, but I think there's another part of my spirit that really doesn't, that is so evolved and so different. My essence is the same, but the way in which I move in the world and the way that I perceive things and my perspectives is so different. And that has come as a result of experience, as a result of time, as a result of so many things.
Right.
And I wouldn't go back to that person, although I love her and I have so much compassion for her. And, you know, she is the reason I am here today. But I really love this version of myself in the present, you know? And I think that's something that happens only with time.
Right. And I think for me specifically, understanding the balance of when it's okay to pack it away or when you might need to pack these things away and when you need to show that vulnerability and be authentic with where you are in that moment. I know that that's now one I like to say in my little arsenal of superpowers. I'm able to go through something really challenging and still put a smile on my face, but also know when it's okay to kind of drop that armor and be authentic with what it is that I'm actually thinking and feeling and going through.
Yeah.
And I didn't always have the ability to move in and out of that at a younger age. So.
Yeah. Interesting. So tell me about the first days or the first moments of when you started your brand. Did you ever have moments of doubt? What did it feel like to really arrive and say, I'm a brand owner?
Yeah. I mean, the very, very early days, I remember when I finally turned myself on to the fact that, maybe you do want to build something of your own, and maybe you do know what it will entail, and that is very much feminine and sexual health. And I remember I was on a business trip in Milan, and it's like my thoughts and my ideas woke me up in the middle of the night. And I still have the note on my phone to this day when all the ideas just started pouring outside of me, and like what I wanted it to look like, and the colors, and even the products, and what the products would be named. It's like it all started flowing to me, and that's when I really started to put pen to paper and mapping out exactly what the brand would look and feel like and what it would stand for. From that moment to the moment we launched, it was years. I think I started in 2018, the ideation. I did not pitch the brand to my investor at the time until I think it started beginning of 2018. I pitched mid 2018, and then I started to really work on it full force, 100% in late 2019. So it's been very much an evolution and years in the making. I think that one of the things that I realized while working on it is that there were a lot of moments of doubt. Can I do this? Can I really take this little idea and make it into something? And there were a lot of moments that I really had to push myself through those feelings of doubt and essentially those feelings of fear. I realized later on that it's often those things that feel unfamiliar or feel like, am I really capable of this? That get in the way of like very little daily tasks. And it was pushing through those feelings of fear. And then once I pushed through, and I proved to myself, no, you can do this. No, you can design a website. No, you can create a color wave and a tone of voice guide and a brand guideline. Like you can do all of those things. And slowly but surely, it started to come together as a brand. I was very lucky in a sense that I did have a team around me when I first started building the blocks of the brand. And I think one of the most beautiful things about that process was it was a small team. I think there were essentially 4 of us that were really dedicated to working on Ketish. And we were all women. And each of us had a different journey with our feminine health. And I found that each of those women brought their journey into building Ketish. Like they really poured their all into it. And it's because they had experienced something on their own, whether it was hormone imbalance or challenges with STIs that then led to other issues and how scary it was for them. And I think it was really beautiful because although I am the founder behind Ketish, I feel like each of them took so much pride and they became little mini founders. And to this day, we're still very close. We no longer work on the brand together, but they're so involved. And we talk all the time and they're constantly giving their input. And I feel like anyone that comes into contact with Ketish really sprinkles their own bit of like love and passion into the brand. I think that's what's made the brand so great is that it represents not just me as the founder, but so many other women.
Yeah, absolutely. It really, what I can sense in what you've created is that it's a brand that is made by real people for real people. You know, it doesn't try and pretend to be something that it's not. But I think that really comes from you because your personality is like that. From the few interactions that we've had, we only met last December, but every time I've spoken to you and every time we've interacted, whether it's on Instagram or on the phone or in person, you've been so open with showing yourself and showing up in the world. And that definitely has an impact on what you create in the world, you know? And that's why I believe that you are truly an example of a mindful maker, because that awareness that you bring to the project attracts people like that around you as well. And therefore your team, when you worked with them and also whatever you go to do in the future, will also show that, I believe.
Right.
If it's not aligned, if it's not from you, it won't work. It has to be that way. So there must have been some criticism about the brand when it first opened, like when it first launched. How did you handle that?
Just to backtrack, because I realized that I didn't make it very clear in terms of what is Ketish exactly. And Ketish at the core is a feminine and sexual wellness brand. Our mission and the driving force behind the brand is really to remove that shame and the stigma that exists around feminine and sexual health. And we work to do that in a number of different ways, but really by creating, products that allow women to be able to come more in tune with their bodies. We create a space, mostly on social media, where women can come and be a part of the conversation and learn and lean on one another. But it's really fueled by this unfiltered dialogue and education around the topics of feminine and sexual health. And so we really are a information and community focused brand. To answer your question with regards to backlash, I think I was hyper aware. Well, it took a second. I'm American, I'm Egyptian American, but I'm very much American in my mindset. And so I have a bit more liberal in me. And when we were building the brand, and again with my team, they often had to remind me where the line was and how close we were getting to that line. And it took some time. We really spent some time speaking to other women from other parts of the world, really trying to understand how they wanted to be spoken to, what they wanted to learn about. And all of that was integrated into the brand. And so I think I was hyper aware. I also was expecting far worse. And when we first launched, we definitely had a fair share of criticism, more so towards me personally, less towards the brand itself.
Were you being trolled?
Just like a lot of opinions with regards to what I was representing, and a lot of opinions with regards to my religious beliefs and, dictating if I would be let up in heaven, and just, a lot of judgments with regards to that. Like, how can an Arab Muslim woman be talking about these things so openly? But what I will say is that the support far outweighed the criticism. We received so many messages like, oh, finally a place where we can learn about these things, or finally a conversation that just feels very fluid and very authentic and very open. And it's not a lot of scientific, terms, and it feels very relatable. And so with every bit of criticism, I found that it was a perfect opportunity for me to learn as to where people's limits were and to understand why people had that mindset or that opinion, but it never stopped us. And if anything, I feel like it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. And that to me gave me indication that people were ready for a brand like this.
I'm getting an innate sense of trust within your team, but also within the journey that you embarked on. How did you go about building that trust? Did it come very easily to you? Because I know that when lots of people get together, trust is one of the things that takes time to cook and stew. But I'm very curious to know about how you ignited and built that within the energy of your team.
Yeah, I think what worked with my team also worked with the community as well. And a lot of that came from my own vulnerability. So sharing my own journey and really opening the door that way, sharing my experiences and what I'd been through with my feminine health and why this brand was so important to me and what I wanted it to stand for. I think building the trust within the team, it came very naturally. I remember there's one person in particular. She's one of the first people that joined the team and really helped me develop the brand identity from a visual standpoint. I adore her. She knows this. It was our first meeting. We spoke on the phone or on Zoom once, and I actually wasn't sure. And when I first interviewed her, I was like, not sure. But she was really good at what she does. And I was like, okay, I'll give her a chance. And it was our first meeting, and we spent hours talking about our own feminine health challenges. And she was actually currently coming out of a time in which her feminine health was at the forefront and she was really working on it. And we were in a cafe in tears, crying. And I think that solidified our bond, and the walls dropped in that first meeting. And it was like every other person that joined the team, it was a similar experience. We really took the time to get to know one another and why the brand resonated with each one of us. And I think that's what built the foundation.
This genuine connection to something that was true within each and every one of you.
Yeah. And I found that it just works. And we didn't always see eye to eye. And I learned so much from them and their opposing views and their opinions. But I think because we had this mutual respect, this understanding that we all had been through so much with our feminine health, that we just wanted to make this the best possible brand. And we really wanted to make sure that the connection we had that felt so real and so authentic then permeated the brand and allowed our community to feel the same way. And I think it really worked. I mean, when we first launched, I received hundreds of messages from women just sharing their experiences. Like we sat there as a team the first night of launch or the first couple days after we launched, just reading through, like tears in our eyes. And I think we knew that we were on to something special.
That's a really beautiful memory. I can sense the vibes in the room as you're telling it.
Makes me a little emotional thinking about it. Yeah, it was really great.
Amazing. It must feel great to have created something like that means so much to so many people in the world. I imagine that navigating the highs and lows of it must have also been quite challenging at times, like you touched on that a bit earlier. And it would have taken a certain amount of je ne sais quoi, which we're about to find out, to navigate that. What got you through those moments?
Yeah, I've always been, my parents probably call it stubborn, but I've always been very headstrong. And I feel like Ketish and building this brand is one of the first things in my life that every step of the way, I have been 100% sure that it's something amazing. We have to do this. It's something that I know has so much potential. And I really anchor myself in that because I know where it came from. I know what it was birthed from. And that is such a deep need that I have had, but so many other women have as well. And so I think anchoring myself in that belief and not being blind, not allowing for that to blind me. I've always been open to feedback. And there have been a lot of mistakes that I've made or that, things that I would have probably done differently. But I think very early on, what was challenging was having this lack of belief from the inside. People within the investor space or the partner space that didn't always feel very supportive, or maybe we had different expectations in terms of what success looks like at different stages of the business. And I think that's been probably one of the most challenging parts of this journey is really taking the time to understand if all of the people on the train are moving the train in the same direction. And in those moments of being challenged, or in those moments where people might have felt doubt, really coming back to that space as a founder and remembering, why am I doing this? What is our purpose? What is our mission? Are the things that we are doing, or the things that maybe our partners want us to do, are those the things that we really should be doing?
Are they supporting that mission and that purpose and that vision?
Yeah. Is it really allowing us to head in that same direction that we know we should be heading on? Or is it just maybe a shortcut that's probably going to backfire? And I think that that's been probably the most challenging part of the journey, because, whenever you're doing something different like this, that is quite taboo, that is up against the tallest of walls, it's going to take time, and you really have to chip away, but you also have to make sure that you're doing it anchored in that purpose, and you're doing it in the right way. And I think that hasn't always been easy.
Yeah, I can imagine the reminder would help to create that anchor and to bring you back to that anchor, regardless of where the waves sway you. So you revisit the essence of the brand and the essence of why you're doing this work in order to help you navigate the challenging times, and almost like a reminder, I imagine, of why you're doing these things.
Exactly.
Would you say that you apply that to other areas of your life as well? So beyond Ketish, so when you're handling challenging moments in life, what are the things that help you as a person, routines that help you?
Yeah, I mean, especially as of late, definitely. I think if you would have asked me this question in my 20s, maybe not. I probably would have gone with the flow, or would have been scared to ruffle feathers, or would have been scared to lose people or opportunities by staying steadfast in what I know is true to me. I think one of the biggest things that's helped me realize and helped me build those tools is therapy. I started therapy about 3 years ago, and it's really helped me identify exactly who Emaan is and what matters to me at my core, and what are the ways in which I can always go back to those core things, and being okay with the loss of people or things when they don't align with who I am. And so therapy is something that I've always, or that I now have to fall back on. I also try my hardest to pour back into myself on a day-to-day basis. And I think a lot of that has to do with my routines of life, waking up at a certain time. I've always been an early riser. I feel like you sleep in, you waste a day. There's so much potential in a day. How can you maximize? And so just my morning routine in of itself, it allows me to pour back into myself every single day in a way that I know is helping me and making me stronger, whether it's waking up, meditating, journaling, going to the gym, and really giving myself that piece of growth every single day. And that's what keeps me on track.
Is that time defined in the morning? Because I imagine there's some days you don't feel like going to the gym. I know I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, especially recently. I could never be a 5 a.m. person. Like, I don't even want to entertain the idea. And I know what they say, the most successful people wake up. No, I'm sorry. I will be as successful as I can be waking up at 7. And I'll be okay with that.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
I can deal with that.
It's not even always 7. Like sometimes it's 7:30. Sometimes it's 8. It really depends on like what time I went to bed the night before. I try to really maximize my sleep. I've learned the power of sleep, which a few years ago I thought I was thriving off 5 or 6 hours. Now I'm like, 8 hours minimum. I need it.
That's the sweet spot for me as well. I need 8 hours for sure.
Yeah.
If I don't have the 8 hours, I have to make up for it later on.
Right.
Like later on in the year, I'll have like a 9-hour or a 10-hour session.
Yeah. Yeah. It's those little things that I don't think I always honored years ago. Having balance, I don't think I honored that. And I'm still learning that.
Yeah, I love that balanced word. So great.
Yeah.
I think balance is also a way that we look after our mental health. And I know for a fact that when I am living a more balanced life, I am also able to show up better for those around me and give more and able to contribute more in a meaningful way, or even just show up and be supportive in a more genuine way when there is balance within.
Right.
And I always think of that. It's not just doing something for myself. It's something that I'm doing in order to help others.
Right.
It has a knock-on effect.
It really does. And I wish I knew it more when I was in the building stages of Ketish. I'll be honest, I was not balanced at all. I was working 10 to 13-hour days. I was burning the candle. I had no social life. And something happened. I mean, a lot of things happened, but there was a switch recently where I realized that, like you had mentioned, I wasn't showing up as my best, most creative self because I was exhausted. And
It's hard to do that when you're exhausted.
Yeah. I was exhausted. I was uninspired. I wasn't, stimulated by the outside world. And I took a trip about a year ago now to Bali. I talk about this trip often because it's so much more than, just a trip to Bali. It really was very symbolic for me. It was my first solo trip after going through a divorce. It was the first time in a long time that I actually took a break and unplugged for longer than 3 days. I was in Bali for about 22 days and I was working most of the time, but there were 10 of those days that I stopped working. And I really needed the reset. And I realized when I came back how much more whole of a person I was and how happy I was being in this other place and experiencing these new things. And it really served me so well. It put so much gas in the tank that I desperately needed.
That sounds so magical, those 22 special days. When I'm listening to you talk about that experience, it makes me wonder, do you believe that there is a way to boost productivity without causing burnout?
Yes. And I think it really does take those day-to-day habits. I think, and it's so hard, especially in this world today where this idea of like the hustle mentality and the nonstop early bird gets the worm, that is what is celebrated. Where I do feel, and I don't know, maybe it's because we as a society have been through so much over the last couple of years. I think that mentality is going away.
Yeah, I feel that massively as well, having experienced that firsthand and this sort of archaic way of working or creating, doing business in the world. I feel like it doesn't suit society's best interests going forward. Absolutely, we need to be able to push ourselves, challenge ourselves, go out of our comfort zone and look at things from different perspectives. And I celebrate that all the time. But I do believe there is a more human way of doing things.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't need to be as hard in order to combat something. Softening into it can help actually create better. And leaving room to explore that gives us more opportunity to show up and be supportive of others as well, because it's not each to their own or we must go in this direction and that's the only direction. It leaves opportunities of curiosity and exploration. And I really support that. I'm a big fan of doing work that way. It's worked for me in my business and the way that I interact with people that I work with as well. And I'm happy to hear you say that.
Yeah. It's taken me some time to get here and it's still a challenge. Like I find myself beating myself up sometimes when I've worked a 7-hour day or I end my day early to go see a friend or I take some time to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
I still hear the little voice in my head sometimes saying, what are you doing? You should be behind your laptop.
That conditioning.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should be changed to our desks. You have to be in the office in order to show me that you're working. I mean,
Right.
no, my intellectual property does not only exist in the four corners of these walls, you know?
Right. And that's why I really respect and appreciate this shift into remote working and teams now being able to feel fulfilled in their lives, but also in the work that they're doing. And as I continue to build any project that I work on, I will hold on to that. I have seen the power of employees or team members feeling fulfilled in what their day-to-day looks like and how that translates into the work that they're doing. I've always been this way. I feel I've been a manager of teams since I started my professional career, since I was like 22, 23, I've always managed teams. And so I've been able to see the difference. And I've always had this very flexible mentality where even when I was a manager at Sephora, I remember one of my team members going through something really tough. And it wasn't a medical thing. It was a mental, emotional thing. And she just needed a day. She needed a day where she drops her kid off at nursery and she just does what she needs to do. And I would tell my team all the time, you need a mental health day, take it.
Yeah.
Message me.
Absolutely.
I need a day.
Yeah.
No questions asked, take it. The work
so
will
important.
get done, but the mental, emotional state of this person that I feel responsible for as my team member is far more important than this deadline or this, this post or this packaging or this whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it's really worked for me in my management style.
I can see that when people show up from a space that they feel fulfilled, the energy is contagious. You know, when you come into the room and you bring that energy with you, it can have the power to lift everybody up. But also conversely, if that energy is not there and they're having a horrible day, it can also drain the creativity out of a space, which doesn't benefit anyone. So you can actually boost productivity, is what I'm hearing, by allowing for space and time for self-care, but also self-love. I think the two things are very different. And sometimes in today's society, we mix the two up by thinking that self-care equals self-love, but the two can coexist and they nurture each other in very different ways. And then you're able to contribute in a more meaningful way in the world.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. So as a result of all of these, I think, magical and juicy ways of grounding yourself in moments, I can see, I love doing my research. So I can see that, that creativity's really come through in your branding and also in the way that you express yourself in the world, such as words like coochiology, which to me is great. I love it. But also it sounds like it belongs in a Prince song. So how did you come up with that word? Please tell me.
Oh my gosh. I got a lot of backlash on that word. And not even from the outside world, like internally. They're like, I don't know if this is going to stick. But I was like, no, this is what it is. So ology, sociology, whenever you think of like the study of something, sociology, biology, psychology. So we needed to have like the study of, I want to say our vaginas, but it was so much more than that.
Yeah.
But we started thinking of words like, what are these terms that we refer to our most intimate parts? What do we call them? And even if you look back at one of the very first posts on Instagram. No, it was actually on our website. Before the website even went live, it was like a streaming animation of all of these words that we collected from our community, our female community at the time, of what they refer to their
breasts,
their vagina.
Okay. Because I saw a video about that as well. There was one about what do you call your breasts, and
Right.
I thought that was fantastic too, because it's just such an everyday conversation in female circles, but no one ever really thinks to check the differentiation amongst people's like language and vocabulary.
Right. And it's like, why have we created these terms? And it's because the actual term vagina for so long has been condemned, or, I mean, you can't even say it on Instagram without being shadow banned. So we as a society have created all of these terms to refer to this beautiful part of our body. And I think it's funny, but I also think it's very indicative of the fact that like, why have we been forced to do that for so long? And where did these terms come from? And so Coochieology refers to just that. It's the study of our lady parts, and coochie is a word that I use.
It's very on brand for Emaan. I can feel it.
I mean, if you ever look at my Instagram or even the Ketish Instagram, you'll see that we're quite cheeky. I wanted to make sure that, it's such a serious topic, but it doesn't always have to be that serious. And we can be playful and we can be fun and we can be relatable. And so you'll definitely see bits and pieces of my personality. It's like a little edgy, a little cheeky, kind of comes out in everything that we do. So
I think that's the importance of the work that you do as well, has this element of lightheartedness to it and feel good and uplifting. Even though you tackle some very serious topics, there is a humanness to it rather than this sort of clinical approach, which has historically been seen when it comes to talking about such subjects.
Right.
I can see that's also a reflection of the journey that you've been on. Big props for the creativity on that one. I'm a big fan of that.
Thank you. We wanted to be seen as, like the big sister, the person that you go to, maybe not even the big sister, the big cousin, the one that you kind of admire from afar and you look up to her because she's been through so much and she's very open and caring and wants to protect you from maybe some of the challenges that she had been through. And so it's almost like that older cousin that you see at Thanksgiving that you sneak off into the corner and you share a glass of wine and you talk to about all of these things that you've been through. That's who Ketish is.
Love it. So I'm really curious now. We've been down the story of Emaan's world and how Ketish came out and how Ketish moved through the world. But tell me about Emaan before Ketish and Emaan after Ketish. Who are these women? How do you see them?
Oh my gosh. Night and day, like so different. So different, but also a lot of the core parts are themes that I've carried kind of throughout my life. I would say pre-Ketish, that Emaan really struggled with knowing her place in the world and understanding her value. And I hate to say this, but because it's like, tooting my horn, but it's like, no, the Emaan today toots her horn. I think I did not know the power that existed within me. And I often played myself down or dumbed myself down to be able to fit into spaces and to just be loved and accepted. That was pre-Ketish Emaan, where now it's still something that I'm working on, and it's not just because I launched this brand and there was publicity or this or that. No, it's solely for the fact that building this brand has been therapeutic for me and has really allowed me to see what it is that I bring to the table, whether it's the creative side of myself or my intelligence or how I really just crave to nurture my friends or my family or my loved ones. I see how funny I am. I see just how much I bring to the table. And I think I didn't always realize that. And I'm proud of that evolution. I think I probably could not have launched this brand without going through that process and really stripping back the layers of the person that was. So I definitely have changed a lot. I've changed just in the last 6 months completely. And I went through a stage in building Ketish where I really retreated. I wasn't as social. I mean, I've always had a really healthy friendship life, but I've lost love. I've lost relationships throughout this process. And that was difficult. Something I don't often share is the 2 weeks before I launched Ketish. It's the day I decided to get a divorce. And I think that was very indicative of the growth that I saw in building this brand and knowing that I wasn't going to settle, knowing that I was worth a lot more.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to walk into this next chapter of life and put myself on this very public stage, still having a piece of me that was not being honored and appreciated.
Wow. You really touched on something quite, I think, relatable to many people out there, that sometimes we have to take these bold and brave decisions that scare us and that feel uncomfortable, but instinctively we know are going to serve a higher purpose or our own higher purpose. And taking those brave decisions does lead to transformation, and transformation is not easy, but it's worth it. Because when you are able to look back on it in a way, you see that the growth, albeit uncomfortable, was necessary and beautiful in a bigger picture.
Yeah.
You arrive somewhere like completely different. So we're going to round up the show. And before you leave, which I don't want you to leave because it's been such an enjoyable experience, nice. I always ask my guests these 2 questions. First one being, if you had an ultimate tune that would embody the spirit of Emaan, what would that song be?
I mean, the first one that comes to mind, it's a little inappropriate. It's probably Bitch Better Have My Money by Rihanna. That's like my alter ego. Like, I just want to step onto the scene and force people to do things. No, I'm just kidding. I think my ultimate song, I'm a big Beyonce fan, huge Beyonce, love her, she's the queen, is probably Formation by Beyonce. And I think it's very indicative of where I am today and who I've had to be throughout the process of building something and really becoming the Emaan of today. And it's not going to stop until she gets it. Calls all of her girls to get in line with her. And it's very much like a call to action. And I just feel like at every stage and every level, it's the song that reminds me, like, you need to boss up. You need to keep going for what it is that you want out of this life and what you want to build. And yeah, it gives me a lot of
energy.
Yeah.
I can feel it.
A lot of energy. Yeah, that would probably be the first. I'm also like very calm. I know I come across as like I am a very passionate person and a lot of energy, but I also like have my chill time too. So I have like probably a whole playlist of songs that could speak to my chill side.
Yeah.
That's my energy side.
We'll have that. That is a very good song to have. And I can see how it's embodying the spirit of Emaan.
Yeah.
So if you could take one item from your life with you on a trip to the moon, what would it be and why?
See, this one is so hard because there's so many things. Am I coming back after the moon?
Yeah, we'll have you back. You're not going to be exiled. Okay. You're just going to go there for a while and you can only take one item.
I would say a camera. And not even the camera that's on my phone, just like a camera, a camera. I'm very big on capturing moments. I also am very big at being in the moment. I don't always like to just like be on my phone recording, but I think that there's so much power in being able to have a snapshot of a moment and being able to look back on that moment and be able to revisit it and feel the feelings that you felt. And I feel like if I'm going to the moon, I'm probably going to be feeling and seeing a lot. I would want to be able to capture those moments at those times where I might come off track or might be feeling low or might want to tell the tale that I went to the moon. Here, look. Looking back at photos and pictures, it's like one of my favorite things to do.
Beautiful.
I'm big when it comes to storytelling. I think that that's also very evident in the brand space as well. And so pictures are such a big part of that. So yeah, a nice camera.
Okay, well, off you go with Formation and a camera.
Yeah.
We'll see you when you come back.
Yeah, I hope so. Oh, I hope I make it back. I got a lot to do.
Emaan, it has been incredible speaking with you today. Thank you for sharing your vulnerability, your story. You are a great storyteller. And also, thank you for being you. It's been an absolute pleasure sharing this space and sharing this time with you. And I hope that if there's anyone out there today listening to this, thinking of how to go about or how to move in the world to create something, be it a brand, a product, or anything that their heart desires, they can even take an ounce of comfort and reassurance in the fact that it doesn't all have to be linear. And in order to live your true purpose and walk the talk, there are many, many ways in which you can let that unfold. And awareness is one of them. Emaan brings that in such a beautiful way. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for creating this platform and not only allowing me, but other creators like myself to share our stories and our missions. It's really important, and representation is huge. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all for today. If you're feeling curious and want to know more about Emaan's world, then check out the show notes for more details. And if you like what you heard today and fancy taking this journey further, then click subscribe or follow us on Instagram at sorsha.edits and let the world of mindful makers become part of yours too. Until next time, stay open, stay mindful, and I'll catch you on the flip side.